When a man on a motorcycle pulled into the parking lot of Meadow Bridge Elementary at 6:15 on a Tuesday evening and saw a boy sitting alone on the swings, not swinging, just sitting, feet dragging in the dirt, backpack on the ground beside him, he almost kept going. Schools empty out by 3:30. The parking lot was deserted. The building was dark. And a boy was sitting on the swings in the failing light, like he was waiting for something that wasn't coming. Want to go home. School is the only place want to go home. School is the only place where someone is nice to me. My teacher is the only one who hugs me. She hugs me every morning when I walk in and every afternoon when I leave, and those are the only 2 times anyone touches me all day. So I stay as long as I can. Because when I leave here, nobody touches me until tomorrow morning. Not waiting for a ride. Not playing. Sitting on a swing set at a dark school because a teacher's hug was the only physical affection in his life, and the closer he got to home, the farther he got from anyone who cared enough to put their arms around him. Meadow Bridge Elementary sat on a hillside above the town of Meadow Bridge, West Virginia, Fayette County, population 380, the kind of place you drove through on Route 19 and missed if you blinked. The school was small, pre-K through 5th, maybe 90 kids total, with a brick front, a gravel parking lot, and a playground on the side with a swing set, a slide, and monkey bars that had been painted so many times the metal was smooth as glass. Cade Mercer was passing through because his welding job in Summersville had run late, and he was taking the back roads home to Oak Hill. He was 40 years old, 6 feet 3 inches, 270 pounds, with a red-brown beard and hands that looked like they'd been used for everything: welding, wrenching, gripping, building. He'd been a structural ironworker for 12 years before switching to mobile welding, and he rode as sergeant-at-arms for the New River Gorge MC, a 9-member club based out of Fayetteville that rode the gorge roads year-round. Subscribe to Asphalt Angels and hit that notification bell, because this story starts with a boy who wouldn't leave an empty playground and a man who almost drove past. Cade walked to the swing set. The boy didn't flinch when he approached, which told Cade something. Either the kid was used to strangers, or he was so deep in whatever he was feeling that he didn't register danger. Neither option was good. "What's your name?" "Levi. Levi Dunbar." "How old are you, Levi?" 8. 8 years old, sitting on a swing at 6 o'clock at night. "Your parents know where you are?" "My dad knows I'm not home. He doesn't care where I am as long as I'm not in the way. I'm always in the way at home. I'm too loud, or I'm too quiet, or I'm in the wrong room, or I'm breathing too hard. He says I take up space, so I stay here. The school doesn't mind if I take up space. The swings don't tell me I'm in the way." "What about your mom?" "She's in Ohio. She moved to Ohio when I was 5. She calls sometimes, maybe once a month. She says she's going to come get me. She's been saying that for 3 years. I stopped packing." "You used to pack?" "Every time she called, I'd put my clothes in my backpack and wait by the door. She never came. After about the 10th time, I stopped packing. Now I just say, 'Okay, Mom,' and hang up. It's easier when you stop believing it." That last line, "It's easier when you stop believing it," came out of an 8-year-old mouth with the weight of someone who'd been let down so many times he'd made a science of it. He'd optimized his own disappointment, figured out that hope was the thing that hurt, not the absence. So he cut the hope out. At 8. If this story has touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Asphalt Angels. Because an 8-year-old boy sitting on a swing at a dark school had taught himself to stop hoping so it would hurt less. "Tell me about the hugs," Cade said, sitting on the swing next to him. The chains creaked under his weight. The swing set groaned. Cade weighed more than the swing was rated for, but the swing held, and that was its own small metaphor. Mrs. Adkins, Third grade. She's my teacher. She hugs me every morning when I walk in. She says, "Good morning, Levi. I'm glad you're here." And she means it. I can tell she means it because her arms go all the way around, and she squeezes, like a real hug, not the kind where someone pats your back twice and lets go. She squeezes. And then, at the end of the day when I leave, she hugs me again and says, "See you tomorrow, Levi." And that's it. That's the whole day. Those two hugs are everything. Nobody at home hugs you? My dad doesn't touch me. Not mean, not nice, not anything. He doesn't hit me. I want to be clear about that because people always assume he doesn't hit me. He just doesn't touch me at all. No hugs, no high fives, no hand on my shoulder, nothing. I could go a whole weekend without anyone touching me. Friday afternoon, Mrs. Adkins hugs me goodbye, and the next person who touches me is Mrs. Adkins Monday morning. That's 60-something hours. I counted once. 63 hours between Friday at 3:15 and Monday at 8, where nobody touches me. He said 63 hours the same way he'd say a math problem, because he had done the math. An 8-year-old had calculated the exact number of hours between the last human contact on Friday and the first human contact on Monday, and the answer was 63, and he lived inside that number every single weekend. What do you do during those 63 hours? Saturday, I wake up and make cereal and eat it in the kitchen, and my dad's already in the recliner. I go outside if it's warm. I walk around. I go to the creek behind the Dollar General and throw rocks. I come back and make a sandwich for lunch and eat it in my room. Saturday night, I watch TV in my room. I've got a little TV. It's old, but it works. And I go to bed. Sunday is the same. Monday morning, I wake up at 6:30 and get dressed and walk to school, and Mrs. Adkins is there at 7:45, and she opens her arms and I walk into them, and that's when the weekend ends. That's when I'm real again. Real? When nobody sees you and nobody touches you, you start to feel like you're not real, like you're a ghost in your own house. You walk through rooms and nothing changes. You could disappear and the house would look the same. The recliner would still be occupied. The TV would still be on. The only thing that would change is one less bowl in the sink. I'd be one less bowl. That's what I'm worth at home. One bowl. Cade looked at the boy. 8 years old. One bowl. Levi, when's the last time your dad said your name? The boy thought about it. Not for effect. He actually thought about it, scanning his memory the way you'd scan a room for your keys. I don't know. He calls me hey or boy or nothing. He doesn't say Levi. Mrs. Adkins says Levi. Grandma June says Levi when she calls, which is maybe twice a month. My mom says Levi on the phone. But in that house, in the building where I live, nobody says my name. I hear it at school, and I hear it on the phone, and that's it. How does that feel? It feels like my name only exists in certain places, like it's a school thing, a phone thing, not a home thing. At home, I'm hey. At home, I don't have a name. If you're watching this story, hit that hype button right now. It's free, takes 1 second, and helps these stories reach the people who need them. Now, back to the story. What does your dad do when you're home? He watches TV. He's in his recliner from the time he gets home from work until he falls asleep. He works at the lumber yard in Raynell, Meadow River Lumber, and he comes home and opens a beer and sits in the recliner and watches whatever's on, and that's his night. Every night. I'm in my room, or I'm in the kitchen, or I'm on the porch and he's in the recliner. We live in the same house, but we don't. We're not in the same house. We're just in the same building. Does he feed you? There's food. He buys groceries. There's cereal and bread and peanut butter and stuff in the freezer. He doesn't cook for me. I make my own food. I've been making my own food since I was 6. I can make a sandwich, and I can microwave things, and I can pour cereal. That's my range. Mrs. Adkins taught me how to make a grilled cheese on the stove during a life skills thing at school, and that was the best day of my year. Do you eat together? He eats in the recliner. I eat in the kitchen. Sometimes I eat in my room. We've never eaten a meal at the table together. There's a table, 2 chairs. I sit there sometimes when I eat, and I pretend the other chair has someone in it. I know that sounds crazy. It doesn't sound crazy. It sounds a little crazy, but it helps. I talk to the chair sometimes. I tell it about school. I tell it about Mrs. Adkins, and about what we learned, and about who got in trouble at recess. The chair doesn't answer, but it doesn't tell me to be quiet either, so it's better than the recliner. Cade stood up from the swing. Levi, I'm going to make a phone call. I want you to stay right here. Can you do that? I wasn't going anywhere anyway. Cade called 911. This is Cade Mercer. I'm at Meadow Bridge Elementary on the playground. I've got an 8-year-old boy named Levi Dunbar who's been sitting here alone since school let out. He says his father doesn't acknowledge him at home. No physical contact, no meals together, no engagement. The child describes severe emotional neglect. He comes to school because his teacher is the only person who touches him. He needs someone here. He texted the New River Gorge MC group chat. Meadow Bridge Elementary Playground. 8-year-old alone for 3 hours. Emotional neglect at home. Need brothers. Bring food. 2 brothers arrived within 20 minutes, Birch and Sully. Birch was a carpenter who always had beef jerky in his truck. Sully was an electrician who stopped at the gas station on the way and brought a hot dog, a bag of chips, and a Gatorade. They walked through the parking lot to the playground and saw Cade on a swing and an 8-year-old on the swing next to him, and a school that had been dark for 3 hours and a boy who was still there. Sully looked at Birch. Birch looked at the school. Neither of them said anything for a second because the image was doing the talking. A child who wouldn't leave an empty school because empty school was better than full house. Levi ate the hot dog on the swings. He ate it slowly, not like a kid who was starving. The fridge was stocked, but like a kid who wasn't used to someone handing him food. The gesture mattered more than the meal. Someone had gone to a gas station and bought a hot dog and brought it to him. Someone had thought about whether he was hungry. That was the part that mattered. Not the hot dog. The thought. Nobody's ever brought me food before, Levi said. I mean, except Mrs. Adkins. She keeps granola bars in her desk, and she gives me one every day at 10 a.m. She says it's for everyone, but I'm the only one who gets one every day. I think she knows. Knows what? That nobody's paying attention to me. She's never said it out loud. She pays attention. She remembers what I said yesterday. She asks about my weekend and actually listens to the answer. She notices when I'm quiet, which is funny because I'm always quiet, but she notices when I'm quieter than my usual quiet. She's the first person in my life who noticed that quiet has different levels. If Asphalt Angels has become part of your week, consider joining the channel membership. Just a couple bucks a month keeps these stories coming. Links below. Now, back to the ending. A Fayette County deputy arrived, followed by a CPS caseworker named Donna Vance, a woman in her 50s with short gray hair who'd been doing child welfare in the county for 18 years. She sat on the swing next to Levi, and the swing set now had a caseworker on one side and an 8-year-old in the middle, and an empty swing on the other side, and the metaphor was louder than anybody wanted it to be. Levi, tell me about home, he told her. Same flat delivery. The recliner. The 63 hours. The chair he talked to. The food he made himself. The porch he sat on. The room he stayed in. The father who didn't hit him, didn't yell at him, didn't threaten him, just didn't see him, didn't register him, lived in the same building and treated Levi like furniture. "He's not mean," Levi said, and this was the part that cracked his voice. Not when he talked about the loneliness, not when he talked about the 63 hours, but when he defended his father. "He's not mean. He's just not there. He's in the house, but he's not there. It's like living with a TV that's always on. There's noise and there's light, but nobody's talking to you." Donna went to the house, a single story on Kessler Road, a quarter-mile from the school. She came back 40 minutes later and spoke to the deputy quietly. Cade was close enough to hear pieces. "The house is functional. Stocked fridge, clean, relatively clean. The father, Travis Dunbar, is in a recliner watching television. When I told him his son was at the school playground at 6:30 p.m., he said, 'He does that.' When I asked if he was concerned, he said, 'He knows the way home.' When I asked about the child's emotional well-being, he looked at me like I was speaking another language. There's no evidence of physical abuse. There's no evidence of anything. That's the problem. There's a complete absence of parenting. The child is housed, fed minimally, and otherwise ignored. Travis Dunbar was not arrested. Emotional neglect cases are the hardest to prosecute because the damage is invisible, and the defense is always, "But I didn't do anything." That's the point. He didn't do anything. He didn't do a single thing for his son in any direction. Not harmful, not helpful, just nothing. And nothing, stretched across 3 years, had hollowed out an 8-year-old boy until the only warmth in his life came from a third-grade teacher's morning hug. CPS opened a case. Travis was mandated to complete a parenting program and family counseling. A family advocate named Rose began weekly home visits. The court was clear. Engage with your son or lose custody, not eventually. Now. Rose's first visit. Travis was in the recliner. She asked him to turn off the TV. He looked at her like she'd asked him to stop breathing. He turned it off. The house was silent. Rose said the silence was louder than any fight she'd ever walked into. Most of her cases had too much of something. Too much yelling, too much drinking, too much anger. This house had too much nothing. The nothing was everywhere. It was in the recliner, and the kitchen table, and the hallway, and the closed bedroom door. It was in the way Travis looked at her when she asked when he'd last hugged his son, and he said, "I don't do that." Not, "I can't." Not, "I forgot." "I don't do that." Like hugging was an activity that other people did, like skiing or gardening, and he'd simply never taken it up. "Why not?" Rose asked. "My dad didn't hug me. His dad didn't hug him. That's how it is." That's how it was. It doesn't have to be how it is. Travis looked at the TV, the blank TV, the dark screen, and he looked like a man staring at a mirror he didn't want to see himself in. Levi's grandmother, Travis's mother, June Dunbar, 66, was contacted and drove from Beckley in 45 minutes. She was a retired cafeteria worker who wore reading glasses on a beaded chain and had the kind of presence that made you feel like dinner was almost ready even when she was standing in a parking lot. She walked to the swing set. Levi looked at her. "Grandma June. Come here, baby." He got off the swing and walked to her, and she wrapped her arms around him, and he stood there inside the hug and didn't let go. She didn't let go either. They stood there for about 30 seconds, and Cade watched, and Birch watched, and Sully watched, and the deputy watched, and Donna watched, and nobody interrupted, because a 30-second hug after years of nothing isn't a hug, it's a repair. When Levi pulled back, he said, "You hug like Mrs. Adkins." June laughed and cried at the same time. "Baby Mrs. Adkins learned it from grandmothers like me." Levi went home with June that night. Not permanently. The court was giving Travis a chance to step up with support. But for now, for tonight, for this week, Levi was in a house in Beckley where someone noticed him. Where dinner was at a table with two people sitting in two chairs, and both chairs had someone in them. June made spaghetti. She asked Levi to help stir the sauce. He stood on a step stool next to the stove and stirred, and June stood beside him, and their elbows touched, and Levi didn't move his elbow away. He leaned into it, actually. Just slightly. Just enough to maintain contact. June noticed. She didn't say anything. She just stayed where she was and let her elbow be the third hug of the day. They ate at the table, both chairs full. Levi talked about school, about Mrs. Adkins, about the guinea pig in the classroom named Biscuit, about how he was reading a book about a kid who builds a treehouse and lives in it. June listened to every word. She asked follow-up questions. She laughed at the part about Biscuit eating someone's homework. After dinner, June found Levi sitting at the kitchen table, talking. "Who are you talking to, baby?" "Nobody. I usually talk to the empty chair, but there's no empty chair here." "That's right. There's no empty chair here." Levi looked at the table. 2 chairs, both occupied earlier, both real. He was quiet for a minute. Then he said, "I think I can stop doing that now." "Doing what?" "Pretending." June sat down in the chair across from him. "You don't have to pretend here. The way you'd put your hand on a table, to the way you'd put your hand on a table to steady yourself." She turned her hand over and held his. They sat like that for a while, not talking, just holding hands at a kitchen table. It was the smallest thing in the world, and it was everything. The New River Gorge MC started a program called Both Chairs, named for the kitchen table Levi described. 2 chairs, one always empty. The program partnered with schools across Fayette County to train teachers to identify signs of emotional neglect. Children who are clean and fed but withdrawn. Children who seek physical affection from teachers. Children who arrive early and leave late. Children who talk about home like it's a place they store their body and not a place they live. The card read, "A fed child can still be starving. Look at what's missing, not just what's there." 6 months later, Travis was in counseling. He was trying. Rose said the progress was slow but real. He'd started eating dinner at the table with Levi on weekdays. He'd started asking about school. He wasn't good at it. The conversations were short and awkward, and sometimes they just sat there eating in silence. But he was at the table. He was in the chair. That was the start. Levi was still in 3rd grade, still with Mrs. Adkins. She still hugged him every morning and every afternoon. But now Levi had started hugging other people too. Grandma June on weekends, Rose when she visited, even Birch when the MC did a school supply drive at Meadow Bridge Elementary, and Levi saw him in the parking lot and ran to him and grabbed him around the waist. And Birch, 6 feet 1 inch, 240 pounds, carpenter's hands, full beard, stood there with an 8-year-old attached to his midsection and looked at the sky and blinked hard a few times and put his hand on the boy's head and said, "Good to see you too, little man." Mrs. Adkins was nominated for the state's Teacher of the Year by 3 different parents that spring. She didn't win. She didn't care. She said the award she cared about was the one where a boy walks into her classroom every morning and doesn't flinch when she opens her arms. She said that award was worth more than any plaque. Cade drove past Meadow Bridge Elementary one evening. Same time, same light, same empty parking lot. The swings were empty. Nobody sitting there waiting out the hours between the last hug and the next one. Just an empty swing moving slightly in the wind. He sat in his truck and watched it swing. Then he drove home. Be the one who sits on the swing next to a kid who's been talking to an empty chair. Thank you for watching this story. If it reminded you that a child who's fed and clothed and housed can still be starving for something, please share it. Subscribe to Asphalt Angels for more stories, proving that sometimes the most important thing a teacher does isn't in the lesson plan. Tell us in the comments, was there a teacher who changed your life just by noticing you?